Ascension Parish Council meeting of January 19th to order. Ms. Fontenot, would you please lead us in prayer?
Father, we do honor you tonight and bless your name. We thank you for the many blessings you've bestowed on Ascension Parish. We thank you for wisdom tonight, for courage to do what is right for this parish. We ask, as always, that you protect our soldiers that are abroad and all those who stand up in our communities to fight. I'm talking about the police officers, Lord, the firemen, everyone that is serving this community to bring safety to the people. We ask that you provide us with special safety from the war on terror. And we just ask these things and bless your name tonight in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Suzanne, let the record, Mr. Councilman Thomas is absent.
Good.
All right, gentlemen, there's no two-thirds considered tonight. Public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on any of the agenda items, please sign in with the secretary. Number 5, there's no consent agenda. Number 6, presentation. Ms. Suzanne, do we have any presentations tonight?
Are they here? Are they all here? Let's see, Jared. 7th district, that's you, huh, Jared? 7th district.
Myself and Tom.
God, you guys all want to go up there with us? God was late. Some of you are.
Seventh District Fire Department. 7th District Fire Department. Taking a picture with the fireman, I guess.
Oh, well, that's over there. Good evening, council members and citizens of our community. Tonight it's an honor to recognize 3 volunteers who have been working many, many years in fire service and EMS service and helping our parish move forward with the safety of our citizens and our property. And they're kind of, I guess, semi-retiring or semi-changing gears or semi-slowing down. Not exactly sure what they're all doing, but we have Mr. Chris Gonzalez. Okay, Chris is not here. 12 years with the Galvez Lake Volunteer Fire Department. Richard Wilson from Geismar Volunteer Fire Department, 20 years. Mr. Wilson, if you'll come up. Thank you for your faithful service. Come over here in front of all these gentlemen so they can get a picture with you. Right here in the middle. All right. One more time. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. All right. Good job. We have Mr. Danny Briscoe, who was the fire chief at the 7th District for the past 2 years. Where's Danny? He's working, okay. Benny's going to represent? Yes, right. Good. All right, Benny. Get the picture here. It's going to be Danny Briscoe tonight. I'm going to your face. All right, guys. Okay, one more time.
Or Johnson, is it Wilson or Johnson?
You got it, basically. You got it.
Spin.
Got all of those, Ms. Suzanne?
That's it? All right. Number 7, Parish President's report. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening again, and we're going to have several people as part of my report tonight. We're going to start off with URS, our project manager for our public works projects and so forth. Ms. Mike Paterno is going to review some of the road projects. You know, we've had some problems on a couple of them. He'll give you what they have found and some of the potential problems. Okay, Mike.
Thank you, Ronnie. I'll be brief. Just quickly go through the projects and their current status, and obviously welcome any questions. And certainly, if you want to get together after and detail discuss any one of the issues, happy to do that. The road improvement projects, 2004 road project phase 1. Engineer PEC has sent a punch list to the contractor, Barry Construction Company, including repairs to Bayou Henderson Road, Landry Road, and Babin Road. In response, the contractors requested a meeting with the Transportation Committee before proceeding with the punch list items. We're trying to expedite that meeting, and the recent Transportation Committee has taken a request under advisement and is requesting legal to provide some opinions concerning that specific meeting. But we're trying to rush it up to make sure that those repairs get implemented quickly. 2004 road project phase 2, construction of the project was proceeding smoothly. Contractor R.J. Daigle completed 3 of the 4 roadways and base prepared on the 4th, easing Melanson. And on tonight's council agenda is a change order to add the right turn lane to that roadway. Contractor's waiting a decision on that issue before completing the work just in that specific area. 2005, the engineer Bert Kleinpeters recently advised that the information that he's needed to complete the roadway is at hand. They've indicated that final plans and specs should be ready somewhere end of January, beginning February. So the parish, us as the program manager engineer, agreed that plans would be complete no later than mid-February, so that bidding could start no later than the end of February. Hope Villa Estates road improvements. GSA's held a pre-construction meeting this past 9th of January. Contractor Barber Brothers has been issued a notice to proceed for January 23rd, 2006. And construction should commence within about 10 days of that date. Expected completion date is in the 3rd week of April. On our road widening projects, both Parker Road and Boudreaux Road Phase 1, construction has been completed on these specific projects. GSA has noted certificates of substantial completion. Yesterday submitted the contractor R.J. Daigle for the Boudreaux Phase 1 road project. Has completed the minor punch list items, installing the right-of-way markers and repairing the cracked driveways and as-built and remaining items needed to be provided on the project. Boudreaux Road Phase 2, clearing and grubbing project has been bid. Contractor is Deppen Construction. GSA has routed the contract to the parish for their final review. Following approval and execution of the contract, construction will commence. It's estimated that clearing and grubbing for the project will start in early to mid-February. Plans for the roadway construction are being finalized and will be ready to bid following the completion of this clearing and grubbing project. Joseph Vario Road project utility relocation phase. GSA reported to us that the plans on the roadway construction are complete and ready to bid following the completion also of this utility relocation phase. On West Worthy Road, the plans are complete and ready for construction. The project is currently in the right-of-way acquisition phase, which is continuing. And we can let Mr. Tom Dawson comment about that a little bit later. Roddy Road and both Cannon Road, that the plans are in the preliminary stages and proceeding according to schedule. There are also some intersection improvement projects. Phase 2 construction of this project began on January 16th. That was R.J. Daigle that started the work on 2 of these intersections, Duplessis Road and L.A. Highway 73 and L.A. Highway 935 at Bayou Narcisse and L.A. Highway 431. Work at the 3rd intersection, Swamp Road and US 61, is being delayed until ETEL can relocate some facilities there, and a small piece of right-of-way is needed at the road intersection, and the parish and the owner are currently negotiating that. Other roadway programs and issues that we're addressing is working with DPW staff to implement standardized field recording, keeping such as daily, weekly field reports, standard field changes, change orders, etc. We're trying to standardize all these issues so that there's less possibilities for errors. We also submitted a standardized engineering agreement that can be utilized that is currently under review. We're also working with the engineering firms to standardize the specifications for the roadways. It will include standardizing the format of the spec, the content of most of the sections, which will allow for easier review of the spec, provide contractors consistency in the bidding phase, resulting in more consistent bid process and hopefully less change orders. We're also working with Mr. Babin to implement a pavement management plan and program, including training of field personnel. Program will allow the parish to more easily access their needs in repairing existing roadways, cracks, etc., maintenance, lifetimes, so on and so forth. Also helping to identify sample programs and methodology for implementing a bond issue. Right now we're looking into that. You recently had a master plan that was updated by LDOTD. We're trying to assist in that effort based on our previous experience in similar programs and other successful programs in the region, and we'll be reporting back to you hopefully shortly on that. We're also assisting the parish in the development of the transportation improvement plan, including long-range planning of projects. This information will be compiled into a summary report, which can be used to develop projects through the MPO and LDOTD project managers. In addition to that, assisting the parish in formulating the goals and strategy of the annual TIP meeting with the Baton Rouge MPO. Due to recent non-attainment status, I don't know if everyone's aware of that, but the MPO is forced to delay that meeting. They have certain limits that they cannot exceed, and the model that they showed that they had some problems at the end of this year, so they're kicking up in high gear since January. And we want to stay on top of that to make sure that the parish's needs are met. We're also submitting and promoting current and future transportation needs to both LDOTD and MPO so that they're included in the long-range updated plan, which is currently being prepared by LDOTD and its consultants. They're constantly moving, and we need to consistently stay on top to make sure that the parish gets its fair share. We'll also continue to meet with LDOTD in a minimum of bi-monthly to monitor these TIP projects. This effort will help to ensure the projects that are important to the parish continue to move through the process effectively and efficiently. The old saying is the squeaky wheel gets the grease is very true, especially with those types of programs. Kind of summing it up with other current issues that we're working on as far as jointly preparing a scope of services with Bill for a potential flood mitigation plan, which would potentially reduce insurance rates and provide the citizens better flood protection, along with the scope of services recently for trying to update some portions of the master plan that you have, and also jointly preparing a scope of services for engineers to submit on the instrumentation of recent pump and upgrade project. That kind of sums up the current duties. We do have some issues. We want to assure the citizens that on a regular basis we're pushing the contractors to make sure that the roads that are under construction are being repaired, that they are doing the punch list items, and we expedite that as quickly as possible. Working very closely with the Transportation Committee. It's been a pleasure to do that, and we're moving full steam ahead. So any questions, happy to take that. Any other details you need to discuss after the fact, I'm happy to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mr. Paterno on our road projects? All right, let's continue in the theme of roads, roads, roads. Yesterday we had the annual Transportation Committee meeting at the state legislature at the Capitol. Joint session between the House and the Senate Transportation Committees, and we, along with East Baton Rouge Parish and some other entities, made our presentations, our proposals. As all of us realize, the parish, the state budget has a lot of question marks in it right now since the storms, and so we wanted to make sure that the devastation that occurred in other areas of the state and the work that we've done to try to help in those areas by relocating many citizens here, that we do not get devastated now because of the stress on infrastructure. We were told by many members of the committee after the meeting that they thought our presentation was very professional, very focused, and hopefully we made progress in moving forward on projects that we so badly need on state roadways. We want to thank Councilwoman Fontenot representing the council there. All 5 members of our state legislature delegation were there, as well as all of the directors of each department in parish government. We probably had 15 people there that we had stand up, far more than anybody else. And so we were told that they who bring the most people get the most money. We'll see if that's the case or not. For your information, in case you haven't heard, we've recently discovered that 2007 is the bicentennial year for the creation of Ascension Parish, which took place in March of 1807, carved out of Acadian Parish. And so we need to know the wishes of the council here in the next few weeks if we want to informally put together a bicentennial commission or just ask some citizens to serve, work with us on our recreation department, how we want to do this. But I want to encourage to really make a big deal out of this, for our citizens and our parish. And our parish seat this year obviously is celebrating this 200th anniversary bicentennial in Donaldsonville, and so next year will be the parish. And so we have a lot of events happening in that regard. So please let the administration know what you would like to do so we can talk about that and put together, begin planning, because March of next year will be here before we realize it. Courthouse Annex, courthouses. There's a couple issues there. The courthouse was scheduled to be completed this week, the council chambers. The carpet is not in. It's being milled, with the contractors telling us, this Saturday in North Carolina. Hopefully it'll be here next week. The panels for the walls are still not in as of this morning. And so we'll have some issues we need to talk about there. But hopefully this will be our last council meeting in the Public Works building. We'll be in the courthouse for next month, all of you. If you have questions, you get Mr. Bill Rue after the meeting. He can give you more of the specifics on that. We had at this time, obviously, we have our Ascension Youth Basketball Association with over 1,200 young people involved in that throughout the various school gyms. And if you haven't had a chance to go by, I encourage you to go by some of these facilities and see the young people involved in that basketball program. In addition, this past weekend was the Parish Livestock Show out at Lamar-Dixon, and a couple of weekends will be the regional show. And I remind all of us and our citizens, February the 11th through the 18th will be the state, or the LSU Ag Center State Livestock Show at Lamar-Dixon, which is a rather large economic development event as well as a wonderful family event. And so we encourage all of you to schedule time on your calendars to attend those events. On the 17th of February, we'll have a welcome to Ascension Parish night with the Jambalaya Association, providing jambalaya for 1,000 people, guests in our parish. We want to really make them feel welcome, to feel at home, where they know we are grateful for the money they're spending in our parish while they're here visiting and participating in this wonderful event. I think the final thing we need to give to you tonight is having to do with our fire service, Fire District Number 1. Mr. Benny Johnson is here. One of you called me during the week or last week about a purchase that was taking place. As you realize, recently we purchased through Fire District Number 1, or in the process of trying to purchase, a building on 44 to make a fire station to replace the station that burned down on Riley Road several years ago, 7th District. Some legal problems have come up on that piece of property because of successions not being completed and so forth, as I understand, and so that's been delayed a little bit. There's been some comments or questions that people have about the purchase of a fire truck as well as this facility being completely renovated and made into a really nice first-class fire station. So Benny's here representing the fire district. He's the chairman now, Fire District Number 1, Mr. Benny Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President, Parish Council. And as Mr. Ronnie just stated, on the 7th District Station, we have some issues that have come up with that, and I think by the end of this month, hopefully all that will be resolved. And the fire department is already working with the architect to design the renovations and stuff on that building. Once we get the approval of the finish of the succession, everything, the purchase, that should go through, and hopefully won't have any delays on getting started on the renovations. As you know and are well aware, 05 was a busy year for everyone, and Fire District 1 was no exception. Firemen from the 6 departments participating in sandbagging, clearing roads, and as well as manning the OEP Center during the storm. We've also were able to purchase the Santa Monica substation in AC, and that will be started to be manned here shortly, as putting a truck there and housing it there and responding out of it. We've also certified at least 15 firefighter 1s in the parish, and not only District 1, but all 3 fire districts combined this past year received a approximately a little over $500,000 in grants money through the federal government that we'll be buying equipment for over the next few months. We've already received some of that equipment. 06 is going to be as busy of a year as 05, if not even a little bit more busier. As we've talked about, we're going to be finalizing the purchase and the renovation of the 7 District property. We're in the process of replacing 2 aged tank trucks that we need to get some replacements for, get some new trucks for safety, as well as just operational costs and stuff on the road, as well as adding a new one that was identified by property insurance for our shuttle operation in the Darrow area in order to keep the rating or help us keep the rating where we are. They identified we had a water flow issue out there, and the way to resolve that was through a tank truck, and so we're in the process of getting those 3 tank trucks on order. We've also just started looking or made forward progress in replacing an aged engine at the Galvez Lake Station. We've got a truck there that's pretty old and costing us some dollars in maintenance, so we're going to replace that one. We're also starting to look into the possibility of hiring a chief administrative officer for the district to organize and give us a little bit better direction amongst the fire departments, and hopefully we can move forward with that. We also met with property insurance representative a couple of weeks back, and we've identified some areas in the near future where we're going to have to start looking at putting some more stations around the parish in District 1. So we're going to be looking forward to working with you gentlemen in a lot of areas this year and getting those things accomplished.
Thank you, Ben. Does anybody have any questions for Fire District Number 1?
Thank you, Benny.
That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Number 8, acceptance of bids. Ms. Bonnie Burrell. I see Ms. Bonnie's being substitute for Ms. Jones. Tonight, gentlemen, Ms. Fontenot, we're going to do it a little different. We're going to attempt to take up all these items at one time. If anyone has any particular one that they would prefer to discuss, Ms. Suzanne, let the record reflect. Councilman Allen Thomas. We're going to take them up all at one time. If anyone has any questions on any one of them, we can pull them out individually. I can tell you, going through the packet, that there was 3 bids submitted for the pump sand and the washed gravel. There were 2 bids sent in for the asphalt and 2 bids for the coal mix, and there was only 1 bid sent in for the generator. Ms. Jones, would you go ahead and read out the low bidders of all these right here?
For the pump sand, not river silt, it was William Aggregate. Wash gravel, Williams Aggregate. Asphalt, R.J. Daigle and Sons. Coal mix, Material Resources Incorporated. Generator for Fire District Number 3, KDM Sales and Service Incorporated.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept purchasing's recommendations on the low bids.
Second, Mr. Chairman. Motion by Mr. Byrick, second by Mr. Tyler Lambert to accept the administration's purchasing department's recommendation for the low bids of these items here. Any questions? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jones. Number 9, appointments to the council committees. I apologize for not having this prepared at the last meeting. Undue work schedules just was bogged down. But anyway, there are a few changes that's going to be made in some of the personnel on the committees, and very few of them. After looking at and reviewing the meetings that were held over the year and the absentee and this and that, there's a few changes to be made on a few of them, not too many of them. On the Personnel Committee, and I apologize also for not making contact with some of you. There again, I've been very busy at my bread and butter job. But anyway, on the Personnel Committee, we're going to replace Mr. Adrian Thompson with Mr. Martin McConnell.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Chairman.
On the Recreation,
Give it to me and I decline.
on the Recreation Committee, we're going to replace Mr. Adrian Thompson with Ms. Cheryl Fontenot.
Which committee? I'm sorry, Chair.
And on the Utilities Committee, we're going to be replacing Mr. Adrian Thompson with Mr. Alvin Thomas. And that's all the changes that's going to be on that, ladies and gentlemen. Number 10. I'm sorry. Mr. Thomas.
What did you just say?
I'm replacing Mr. Thompson on the Utility Committee with you, Mr. Thomas.
Oh, I decline.
You decline?
Yeah.
Okay. I will come back at the next meeting and fill that slot. All right, number 10. We should have all gotten a resolution that was sent to us by Evolves Parish and St. James Parish. Both of those parishes have adopted this resolution. Has everyone had opportunity to read it for your consideration as far as joining their efforts to try to reestablish this construction grants program that was cut out years ago? I'm going to go ahead and read it in full, so bear with me here. A resolution supporting the reestablishment of the construction grants program. Whereas in 1987, amendments to the Clean Water Act set 1990 as the last year that grant funds would be appropriated for the construction grant program, and whereas during the 1970s and 1980s, the construction grants program was a major source of federal funds for the construction of publicly owned wastewater treatment facilities, and whereas the projects funded through the construction grants program include sewage treatment plants, pumping stations, collection, sewers, rehabilitation of sewer systems, and the control of sewer overflows. And whereas these projects constitute a significant contribution to the nation's water and wastewater infrastructure, and whereas the EPA's effective management of the construction grants program led to the improvements of water quality in thousands of municipalities nationwide. And whereas Hurricanes Katrina and Rita have caused catastrophic damages to the parishes in southeast and southwestern areas of South Louisiana, decimating both large and small municipalities. And whereas an amendment to the Clean Water Act reestablishing the construction grants program would enable the parishes in South Louisiana declared disaster areas from Hurricanes Katrina and Rita by President Bush and Governor Blanco to rebuild their communities with a better infrastructure, thereby improving the water quality in those parishes. Now therefore be it resolved that Ascension Parish Council does hereby support the reestablishment of the construction grants program and urges the Louisiana congressional delegation to work expeditiously to include this amendment to the Act. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be sent to the members of the Louisiana congressional delegation, all parishes in the state, especially those declared disaster areas, and the Louisiana Police Jury Association.
Motion, Mr. Chairman. Second.
You got a motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Ms. Fontenot to adopt the resolution and send it forward. Any questions? Any opposition? Having none, motion passed. Number 11, as we all know, we finally got the Economic Development Corporation up and running, and in the agreement and the bylaws, it was stated that we would appoint 2 ex officio members of the council to serve and represent the council. At this time, I'd like to appoint Mr. Jared Byrigger and Mr. Kent Shakespeare as being ex officio members of the Economic Development Corporation. All right. Number 11A, grant consultant contract. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You may recall about the time Katrina came on shore, the parish administration was in the process of evaluating grants and how we administered them and so forth in the parish. And so we went to Mr. Paul Keller, who has had experience as a parish president in our area years ago, also worked under one of our governors in economic development, rural development especially, several years ago, and we asked Mr. Keller to come in and analyze what we were doing good and what we were doing bad, and how we could improve the process. As most of you realize by now, a lot of the federal money, since revenue sharing per se has been done away with, this federal money many times, even though it may be earmarked for our parish, for example, the $250,000 that Senator Vitter has in for Lamar Dixon, we still have to complete an application, a grant application, which goes in this particular case, since it's housing and urban development money, it's not a competitive bid, but you still got to complete the paperwork. You got to send it in to HUD. They got to send it back, and then it's approved, and then they send you the money. And so more and more the federal dollars that are being made available to local governments are going through those kind of processes and systems. And it's important that we improve what we do. You remember, I think it was last week, Councilman Chairman Salvar talked to us about lobbying efforts, and so what Mr. Keller has been doing, he had a 90-day contract, and he gave a report to us last Friday. He finished his research and analysis in the parish, and so we have asked him to come tonight and present to you what he found. At the same time, he's made a proposal to us, a one-year contract, and I'm sure he'll be happy just to go through the end of the year, which I guess would be 11 months, but a one-year proposal to work with us to train people. He's identified some people in our parish, currently in parish government, who could work in this area, and he and his firm would be working with them to develop an in-house grants office that we can bring more federal dollars, more state dollars, and possibly more private foundation dollars to help us with our various projects, especially in the infrastructure area. So, Mr. Keller.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Council Chairman, members of the council. Well, I found out a lot of real good things, and some were contradictory to what some of the things you would normally hear. One of the big things about your federal grant record, you have gotten into the process of getting what we call pass-through grants. You've done fairly well with that. That is grants that come from a federal agency, passes to the state, and then they're allocated into local governments. As far as individualized, applied for, and gotten grants, your record has been poor. In some fields, you've had almost a zero record. And the thing about it is this, is that there was no central coordination between the agencies, the grant process, the grant monitoring process, and the grant financial management process. Those things were not consistent. Now, it's one thing to get a grant. It's another thing to manage that grant and manage it to the state that you will almost automatically be in line for number 2 and number 3 and number 4. There was no effort that had been made that I could see in writing, and believe me, I went through stacks and stacks of all your public documents. I went through all of your financial documents. I've looked at the parish as a whole and traveled through it, and your president was so kind as to make everything available to me. And what I would like to do, in fact, I've given it to you. I think everyone probably has a copy of it. It's called Exhibit 2. It has the black cover on the back of the contract, and it says exactly how the process should be done. Now, one thing also is that there are a lot of grants that have become available by private foundations. And now that is increasing because of the impact of what has happened with the hurricane. You have private foundations that want to help various areas that have been involved in it in the recovery process. So that leaves another door open. One of the things that, I'll tell you something, you have some excellent people out there in the field. I have, particularly with your laws department, with your public works, I have spent very much time with Mr. Rue. It has been very, very helpful. He has offered all the coordination that could possibly go, and that is a necessity process, that whoever's going to handle the grant process, not just the writing of it, but will handle the entire process, has to have three things backing them up. Number one, they have to have the agencies of the parish fully cooperating in the process. And then while they're cooperating, being trained on how to carry on the process afterward. The second thing that has to, and this is what affects you all, there is not a reason on the face of this earth that every councilman should not be the important link to determining what actual grant monies are needed within your individual district and setting a priority on that. Because nobody knows your people better than you do, believe me. So it will take your involvement.
What you say?
Well, I'm just telling you the way it is, and
That's
believe
true.
me.
I've heard that before.
I think you can check my record. I'll put it against any grant receiving agency in the United States. At one time, I was getting 2/3 of the total funds coming into the state of Louisiana. And I think that stands. But you've got to understand the federal process, you've got to understand the state process, and you've got to understand the local process. But it all begins with the local one. Now, once you can get a merging of the councilman's priority in the district, the agencies cooperating to furnish the information, then the centralized staff preparing and critiquing the grant and fine-tuning it, you will have no problem. You have to know the federal bureaucracy, though. You have to have personalized contact. If it's a Department of Commerce grant, you have to have personalized contact with individuals in that department. If it's Health and Human Services, the same thing. If it's agriculture, the same thing. And you must establish those contacts. Because, believe it, they are the ones that will say yes and no in the long run. Now, I've served as chairman of the board of directors of the National Association of Counties for quite a while. And in that process, developed strategy for all counties all over the United States on the Washington Circle, as they call it, in the lobbying process. Now, if we look at it in this way, that we have our Washington connections, we maintain those connections on a regular basis, and when we get a grant, we make sure to personally thank and in writing thank every congressional person involved, every state person involved, and every agency person. And during the year, make phone calls to these people and say, thank you again for what you did for us. So the next time one hits the desk, it will be looked at, oh, put this one in a good pile. Otherwise, the bad pile it goes. Now, you have to look at the process in its entirety. You have another person that I could see that not a single time that there had been a contact letter or a contact email or a contact anything with is called a grant reviewer. I know I serve as a grant reviewer for 4 national departments. In other words, when these piles of grants come in, they're dispersed to all these reviewers in the country, and very few people know who they are. They then make comments on the grant, and then they go back to the department. But there's one thing about it. Once you learn the inner circle, you can know every reviewer that's going to be reviewing your grants. So what you do is to make sure you become friendly with that reviewer ahead of time. Now, this might not be things that are streetwise or whatever it is, but it works. And I think if you look at this, I'm not going to go over all of this with you, but these are the things. If you have questions about any of these, I'd be very, very happy to answer. And that's why the parish president told me, he said, look, he says, I hope that every councilman can get involved in this process with you. I said, look, for me it's a necessity. Because if I want to do it the way I believe in, that becomes a necessity. That means I'm going to have to ride with you. I'm going to have to walk with you. I'm going to have to stop at your places with you. And maybe in a short period of time, I will try it. I might never know as much as you know about your district, but I will understand your needs of your district, and that's important. So that's how I'll do it, gentlemen. I have no other way. If that's what you think can help you, then I would very much like it. I've already dropped the price on the contract to half of the normal price, so that's not a negotiable issue.
Thank
the
you, Mr.
president
Kelly.
also has seen to that.
As you know, this has been one of the probably weakest areas in parish government for certainly during my 2 years and maybe even farther back. I can only speak to our 2 years. And now, with so much of the federal dollars that are available to us coming through this grant process, you think of it as lobbying, you think of it as grants, you think of it as whatever you want to, but we have done a good job the last 2 years, in my opinion, of developing really good relationships with congressional members and their staffs. The area that we think we need to work on is that, and Paul really comes in, is develop those relationships with the cabinet level departments, like he mentioned. And that's an area where he knows a lot of people personally. He's been involved intimately in that process for years. And with the relationships we have established with the members of Congress and the relationships that he has with people in various departments of the federal government, as well as the state government, we think this will be a win-win for our parish. And this is a one-year contract proposal for you tonight. And he's been over backwards. He's got very attractive terms in there for us to get out and so forth. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McConnell.
I'll tell you one last thing. If you want to think about numbers in the grants process, it's the place of January. I just have my centralized office been dropping them on my computer on a nightly basis that are as they come out of Washington, regardless of what agency. There's about 20 to the page, and these are the number of pages that you have that just have come out since the first of January.
Mr. McConnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to throw in my personal experience. Mr. Keller served at one time as the president, the first president of St. James Parish, our neighbor to the south, and he did a lot of good things there in that parish. He also served as the governor's director of the Office of Rural Development for the state of Louisiana. And way back in the day when I was in the economic development business, it was thanks to a lot of assistance from Mr. Keller in that office that our community was able to get the Tanger Outlet Center here in Gonzales, and that was because of cooperation that we received from Mr. Keller. I also had an opportunity to attend Community Development Institute at Nicholls State University, and Mr. Keller was one of the professors and the teachers at Community Development Institute. He knows of which he speaks, and I've been there, and I just want to vouch for him and for his character because I've been in there in economic development, and Mr. Keller has been in there wading in it up to his ankles, above his ankles, and I'm very pleased and proud that someone of Mr. Keller's caliber and quality would like to come and do work for Ascension Parish. And with that, if I'm in order, I'd like to move to adopt this contract.
Second.
We got a motion by Mr. McConnell, second by Mr. Dempsey Lambert.
Discussion.
To approve this grant consulting contract with Mr. Keller. Question, Mr. Hillingsbeck.
Mr. Babin has legal had a chance to look at the contract, review it.
I got it on the 17th, and I reviewed it, just some couple
things I'll add, but have not gotten my comments from Ms. Quinn yet. I'll do that.
Pending legal.
Chairman,
And let me, if I can answer your question to Doug, it's basically the same contract that we signed with Mr. Paul Keller and Associates for the 90-day review of our evaluation analysis of how we did grants in the parish, and as far as the language and so forth.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Valentine.
Chairman Saville, I don't know Mr. Keller, of course, certainly only by reputation, but I would have thought that maybe we probably should have sent this through strategic planning, maybe to look at this. I'm kind of like Mr. Babin. The first time I saw the contract was Tuesday. I'm certainly not in objection of signing a contract with someone to do and help us with grants. I think it's sorely needed. I think it's something that we've all around this council have been talking about, along with other situations dealing with Washington, D.C. and everything else. But he did mention that he wanted to get to know us, and there are some things, I guess, in his contract that, we may want to discuss. It's just my suggestion that we might want to send it to strategic planning unless it's an urgent matter. I don't know why. I don't remember this being on the agenda last Thursday. It may have been, but I don't remember seeing it last Thursday, and it got on the agenda since we had our finance meeting. It just kind of caught me by surprise that we were doing this tonight out of our normal scope. So I would make a substitute motion that we send this to strategic planning first and then bring it back to the council.
I second it.
Got a substitute motion by Mr. Valentine, second by Ms. Fontenot, to send it to strategic planning. Is there any question?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman, addressing Mr. Valentine's concern. The reason it wasn't on the agenda last Thursday is that our meeting had been scheduled for, I guess, since Christmas with Mr. Keller for that Friday at whatever date was last Friday. And once he made his report to us, and it looked very good to me, and we checked his references and his qualifications, I thought it was important that we move forward on this. We've been, as you mentioned, George, we've been talking about for quite a while, and the hurricanes delayed us because of what was happening in the analysis of what we needed to do. And so, and I add this, that before we hired Paul Keller and Associates, we'd had Don, our Chief Administrative Officer in the Finance Department, working to look at best practices around the country. And what we discovered in that process, I guess, first half of last year, was that different counties do it different ways. I mean, what works in Maricopa County, Arizona, for example, as a consultant. What worked in one of the outstanding counties in North Carolina that leads the nation was in-house. What worked in Tupelo City, Mississippi, was the Planning and Development Department being over it, with finance working. So we found best practices varied, and what they told us basically was that you have to find what works in your community with your people and go forward with it. And so there's about 3 best practices that we identified as ways of doing it. And what we've asked Mr. Keller to do is to help us set up and train our people. And then when he's ready to move on, hopefully we'd have the people in-house that can carry this forward and would have those relationships built with these various cabinet level positions and their staff people. So, but that's the reason, George, it was not on the agenda last Thursday, because we was waiting for his report, which has been scheduled for Friday morning.
Mr. Chase Snyder.
I too have known Mr. Keller and his very good reputation, and we'd certainly like to get him on board. I do know a number of council members haven't had a chance to meet with him, and if it's the wishes, we do have an opportunity to get him through the strategic planning meeting on Monday, and we could vote on this at the next meeting to make sure all the council members get a chance to meet with them, and have any questions. We could take any questions out of the way and move forward with this. I'd like to get it done as quickly as possible, but we do have a meeting this Monday, so we could get him on as quickly as that.
Any further questions? I got one question, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Is the contract amount in the budget?
Is it in the budget?
In the 2006 budget?
Gwen, help me there. Did we? I don't know, I think we showed it in-house and not as a consultant, but or consultant. And by doing it this way, we also save on benefit costs, health insurance, retirement, and so forth. So, and then we also have access to the other people that work in this firm. So I'll point out to you that I guess into last year we were paying a firm about $138,000 a year for DC lobbying and grants. And this is $60,000 a year with a person of his caliber and reputation to do basically the same thing, with a lot of the congressional lobbying being parish president and CAO, and because of the relationship that Mr. Heisel had in Washington for 8 years with BASF, he actually has very good contacts in Washington already established, which is a great benefit to our parish. And so between those relationships and Paul's relationships, Jerry, the budget would actually be significantly less than what we were spending on it before.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Hillenbeck.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know Mr. Keller, I think he's been working, 90 days now? I had a chance to meet with him, and he's, is that right, Ronnie? He's been in about around 90 days?
About 90,
yeah,
something like that.
And I really, though I don't know Mr. Keller personally, I do know of his reputation, and Martin said it well. I'm concerned about what we might be giving up in delaying this thing any further. We need to get the grant program going, and we really need to get it going now. The old say going, you can commit anything to death, and I hate to see this get hung up in committee and be delayed even further. I think the parish president has come with a good recommendation, someone with experience, and it's certainly reasonable compared, it's not that much more than what we were paying a previous grant consultant. And so I'd kind of like to see us go ahead. I'm against setting the committee. I think we need to go ahead and move on this. I mean, we've all known for some time this night was coming, for 90 days at least.
Any further questions? Got a substitute motion to send this to strategic planning. Is there any opposition to the substitute motion?
I oppose.
We got Mr. McConnell. I oppose. Mr. Hillenbeck. Mr. Dempsey Lambert. And Mr. Thompson. 4. Motion passes. It goes to strategic planning. Mr. Chase Knight, I would like for you to get on this as quickly as possible so you can get this back to the council for consideration. And number 11B, authorization.
I'll pass on that. Ms. Suzanne, could you put that on the next agenda? We still have some more work to do with that.
And number 12, Finance Committee report, Mr. McConnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since I was absent from the committee, and I'm
sorry to interrupt you, Mr. McConnell, but I do have a speaker on item A, so whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to defer this to Vice Chairman of the committee, Councilman Valentine, because he did conduct the committee meeting for me, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Chairman Salvo. Thank you, Mr. McConnell. By the way, Mr. McConnell, how'd the wedding come out? You did okay? And
my son danced with every young girl on the dancing floor. He was very, very popular. Thank you very much.
Mr. Savoy, the speaker is on the Quad Area Community Action Agency, and we welcome her to the mic, and she can once again make a short presentation. We did discuss this at the finance meeting, but you might want to tell. You have before you, gentlemen and Ms. Fontenot, 12A being the sub-grant agreement emergency shelter grants program.
Ms. Donnies.
I appreciate y'all's time. There's only 2 corrections on the sub-grant agreement that we need to change. On page 7 under notices, where it has the Parish of Ascension's address, Ronnie Hughes' name, recipient project sponsor's address, we just need to put our new office address there and change it from 1835 North Magnolia Avenue to 1222 East Cornerview Road, Suite 9. Gonzales, Louisiana 70737. And one other change on page 9. The grant subject, the funding comes down, as you can see on page 1, starts the first day of July 2005. So on page 9, we need to correct where it says the in-kind has to be from July 1, 2003 to July 1, 2005. And that's the only corrections I need on the sub-grantee, because I don't want it to go in wrong. Before
Chairman.
the President's allowed to sign it, and my executive director.
All for a motion to accept the sub-agreement for,
Motion by
grants
Mr.
program
Byrigger.
as amended.
Second by Mr. McConnell, to accept the emergency shelter grant program with the amendments. Is there any question?
It was a recommendation of the Finance Committee also that night.
Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Donese.
Thank you, Chairman Savoy, Ms. Donese. We'll move now to agenda item number 12B, the audit compliance questionnaire resolution. Ms. Gwen LeBlanc explained this at our finance meeting. You will note that the resolution, be it resolved that the Council of the Parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, hereby adopts Louisiana compliance questionnaire for 2005 audit of government and Parish of Ascension. Be it further resolved that the Louisiana compliance questionnaire be presented to the auditors Falk and Winkler, said audit firm approved by Ascension Parish Council and the State of Louisiana Legislative Audit, and I will offer that resolution tonight.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Tyler Lambert, second by Mr. Kent Shakespeare. Is there any questions? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
Other recommendation of the Finance Committee, 12C, is the renewal of leases on polling precinct sites. Motion made to accept the new polling place lease agreements in compliance with Louisiana Secretary of State to reflect recent changes in the law effective January 1st, 2006 as follows. LeBlanc Nissan at 14295 Airline Highway, American Legion, Gotro Williams Post, number 81 Gonzales, AmSouth Bank, Weber City Road, Paul Mayon, 37092 Miller Street, Prairieville. Further, to accept the cancellation of the polling place agreement with the Disabled American Veterans and to relocate to the Fire District Number 1 training facility at 13192 Airline Highway, Gonzales, Louisiana, 70737, formerly the All-Star Ford facility. And that is also a recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Dempsey Lambert, second by Mr. Tyler Lambert. Is there any question? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
Agenda item number 12D is the contract renewal for the ETEL Sunshine Pages for the 2006 edition of the Ascension Parish Emergency Preparedness Guide.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Byrigger, second by Mr. McConnell. Is there any question on the motion? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
Agenda item number 12E, also a recommendation, is a cooperative endeavor agreement for services between the Parish of Ascension and Capital Area Legal Services Corporation.
Motion. Motion by Mr. Byrigger, second by Mr. Tyler Lambert. Is there any question? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
That's all, Chairman Savoy.
Thank you, Mr. Valentine. Number 13, Strategic Planning Committee. Mr. Shakespeare.
Yes, Ms. Gwen LeBlanc had asked us to do some cleanups. We had made a motion to dedicate the 40% of the franchise fee to the government access channel, and she said we needed to make a motion to make everything official as follows: to dedicate 40% of the annual cable franchise fee revenue for the operation, maintenance, and purchase of capital equipment necessary to use the government access channel to be administered by the EIS Office of Parish Government. We would like to add to that a couple of words to make it broad enough so they can do the programming they need to. Is after the purchase of capital equipment, including funding for programming. Programming, capital improvements, and everything they need to do to make the government access channel the best they can. I called Ms. Gwynn today, and she said that would be fine to include that to make sure all our bases are covered.
I second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Byricker, second by Mr. Feinberg.
As amended, Mr. Chairman.
As
The
amended.
Programming also.
As amended. Is there any question?
Comment, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President.
Are we sure we want to say to dedicate here? Because this is not dedicated money. Hadn't been dedicated by the
Yeah,
So this-
change that to budget, but the budget.
Excuse me?
budget 40%.
Oh, okay. I'm just doing what
That's what I said.
Ms. Gwynn had represented.
First said that. I heard
You got that, Ms. Suzanne? Any further questions? Any opposition? Having none, motion passed.
Next thing is that we wanted to get on your desk, we had a meeting, a strategic planning meeting, in which we discussed the Civic Center at Sorrento, and we were just able to get the material out, and so we made some motions to Mr. Babin, gave us the recommendations that in order to clear up the lease at the Ascension Civic Center in Sorrento, he had to do 3 different motions, lease agreements to clear up some things, and we wanted to get it to you tonight and put it on the agenda for next meeting so you can look over it and we can vote on it at that next meeting. And that's all my report.
Thank you, Mr. Exton. Recreation Committee, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make sure that on January 30th, I ask that every member of the Recreation Board make sure you try to attend this meeting. We need to get some things going. I mean, we hadn't met in a while, and we also have a new director. I think we hadn't met yet. So Ms. Kinchin, Ms. Kinchin I work at Laureate to meet it with, and I know her pretty well. And she and I have been in contact. But I would like to have a full meeting with everybody there just to start the year off on a good foot. So, and this meeting is going to be at 6 o'clock here at DPW on January 30th. So, and thank the administration for getting the West Ascension Recreation. Also have a representative there on the 30th so that we can work some things out. Thank you.
Ms. Suzanne.
Yeah, this Monday.
I think it's Tuesday.
Notify him of that meeting and requested.
They have responded. I talked with someone from the administration of Downsonville with the recreation, and they have responded. They will be coming. So thank you, administration, for sending it out.
Mr. Todd Lambert.
Yeah, Mr. Thomas, is that going to be on the Monday instead of the Tuesday? It's usually the last Tuesday. That would be the 31st.
Okay.
That would be the 31st.
31st is the State of the Union, that night, National State of the Union.
31st? Tuesday?
That's what is normally the last Tuesday of the month.
I'll definitely have to miss that one.
All right, so that's what you sent to Donaldsonville? Okay, the 31st. Okay.
Okay. 31st, yeah. That's it. Sorry.
Ms. Fondo.
I'd just like to ask Ms. Suzanne if she'd please remind me, this is my first time on the committee and I'm not familiar with the date, so.
31st. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, on recreation.
Mr. President.
Mayor Sullivan and I talked this afternoon in length about a couple things that have been involved with this recreation program there and the funding between the city and the parish. And just so you'll know, we've done 2 or 3 things here in areas where we're putting parish funds into municipal programs, or we're doing joint efforts between fire, recreation, whatever. We're looking at per capita what we're spending in fire service, recreation, and we'll have a report on that for you real soon. And Mayor Sullivan reported that back in June when he was having this reduced budgets across the board in the city of Donaldsonville because of their financial situation, it's improved significantly with the new Walmart and other business activity around that activity, and that we actually received some money already in the parish portion of that this month. And so he reported to me tonight that it's looking a lot better, and hopefully we can make some adjustments back there, and I tell him we'll look at some dollar-for-dollar matches. We need to just talk about different things there. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Number 15, Personnel Committee. Report, Mr. Valentine.
Thank you, Chairman Savoy. Agenda item number A is the appointment to the Planning and Zoning Commission of Julio Dumas. If you remember, there was a recommendation, but there was he was part owner of a development at the time, which did have some references to the Ethics Commission, which he has cleared up. He has divested himself of that and has gotten out of that situation. And so we do offer him as a candidate for the Planning and Zoning Commission.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Hillsbeck, second by Mr. McConnell. Any question? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
I will note that Mr. Julio Dumas is an outstanding resident of this parish, and I'm sure he'll do a great job on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Also, we have 3 reappointments to the Ascension Parish Fire District Number 3 Board. Mr. Mike Doring, who is a recommendation of the council to renew his.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Byregger, second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Any question? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
Mr. Gary David Newman, also by the committee, unanimous.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. McConnell,
Second.
second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
And Ms. Terry James Casso.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Byregger, second by Ms. Fontenot. Any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 6, I'm sorry, Mr. Valentine.
There were some other discussions. I will defer to, there are items on the agenda, and we'll discuss some recommendations that came out of Personnel Committee when those items come up, please.
Number 16, Transportation Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rue, would you like to address those, or would you like me to? Okay.
Transportation Committee met and has the following recommendations. 16A, recommendation to approve balance and change order Parker Road. On it, it's in your packet. We had a reduction, a decrease of $130,649.95 off the bid price, and we recommend acceptance.
Motion by Mr. Todd Lambert. Second by Mr. Jensen Lambert. Any questions? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
16B, recommendation to approve balance and change order on Boudreaux Road Phase 1. On that change order, balance and change order, we had an increase in the original bid in the amount of $1,215.82 to make the total contract price $722,265.43. Recommendation to accept.
Motion. Motion by Mr. Byregger, second by Mr. Thompson. Any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
Not so loud next time, Mr. Thompson.
16C, recommendation to approve the 2004 road project Phase 2 plan change. In it actually is for two, it's combined as one road project. Most of the plan change is for Easley Melanson Road right turn lane. It does include other improvements on Easley Melanson, and also some work, concrete slab on Butch Gore Road as part of that project. And the total change order is in the amount of $110,721.23. Recommendation to approve.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Mr. Fontenot. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
Item 16D, recommendation to approve the following new task order contracts. Professional Engineering Consultants, PEC. Number 2, Burt Kleinpeter Incorporated. And number 3, Mittelberg, Riddle, and Guyana, I think.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Byregger, second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Any questions? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hillsbeck.
Yeah. Before we move on, I'd just like to go back to item 16A, and I want to thank GSA and Associates for that saving the parish $131,000. Turned out they built a beautiful road up there, Parker Road. Plus they came in under budget. It was a nice cost savings. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shaheen.
Is that all you have, Ms. Fontenot?
No. I wanted to thank Mike Paterno for giving the update on the road. That was the report I was going to give to the audience tonight, but he saved me from it. Also, the parish president gave up a little bit of the report from yesterday, but I do have a few words to say about yesterday's road show. We did meet, Parish President Ronnie Hughes, Director Bill Rue, and myself were there, along with several members of our parish, our staff. Our concerns were addressed to the committee and to our own Senator Amade and Representatives Roy Crozet, Eddie Lambert, and Mert Smiley, who were in attendance and listened to our concerns. We offer a thank you. Representative Lambert informed me at the meeting that the project on Bluff Road and Old Perkins has been let. So that's good news to the people down Perkins Road who can't get home in the afternoons due to the traffic jam. Also, we discussed there was the project at 62173 and I-10, which is moving forward and proceeding at the normal pace. Senator Lambert, Representative Lambert also discussed with the committee at length that he would like to see the exit on I-10 and 74 moved into priority because this would relieve traffic and bring the interstate traffic further south. So I just wanted to give you that brief update on the state projects. And as always, I remind you that we do meet the second Tuesday of the month, 7 p.m. in this building until somebody tells us otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fontenot. Number 17, Utilities Committee. Mr. Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item A, the committee recommended to spend $12,590 to replace pumps at Hope Villa Estates, also known as Trailer Land Wastewater Treatment Plant.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Shea-Snyder, second by Mr. Dempsey Lambert. Is there any question? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Item B, we also had a recommendation to allow GJH Incorporated of White Castle to continue collections for the Dara sewer system.
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Fontenot,
Second.
second by Mr. Shea-Snyder. Question, Mr. Thompson.
Yes, have we got a price from him or how much he gonna charge to do the billing for that sewer system?
Mr. Bill Rue.
Yes, sir, I can clarify this a little bit. What we recommend and the Utility Committee recommends is actually the exact same contract that we have for the collection of these fees with Parish Water on Ascension Water, rather, on the other sites, Country Ridge and Trailland, Hope Villa. And with the only one exception is for the Darrow collection, the delinquent fee, where it's $25 delinquent fee at the other two sites. This contractor says he needs $40 delinquent fee because of the number of people involved. That's the only change to the contract. So
Repeat
it's
that,
different
Mr. Rue.
from $25 delinquent fee disconnect to a $40 disconnect fee. But everything else in the contract is identical to the contract that we have with Ascension Water at the other sites.
Okay.
And we recommend acceptance of this. We negotiate
So
with them.
he agreed to that?
Yes.
In Astro Land, right now, he's also in that area collecting the sewer fee, and he's charging $5 per customer for billing. We need to sit down with him and see if we can get that at $1 also then.
Yes, sir.
Because that's collecting in the same area.
Right.
Same billing.
And we haven't talked to him about that, but we will.
Any further questions? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, finally, we do meet the second Tuesday right before the Transportation Committee at 6 p.m. And that finishes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Number 18, we've got a couple of zoning reviews. I'm going to ask Mr. Lance Brock to come up, and I'm going to read these things out, and then Mr. Brock is going to tell us the department's position and the zoning, planning and zoning committee position on each one, so we can move this right along. Zoning review ID 140705, property located on the southwest corner of Louisiana Highway 44 and Germany Road. to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from medium-intensity residential to crossroads commercial for Alvin Miller, Ronnie Miller, and Cody Miller. Mr. Lance Brockwitz.
The recommendation was to accept.
Coming from both?
Yes, sir, coming from both.
Second. Motion by Mr. Byriga, second by Mr. Hillensbeck. Any opposition? Having none, motion passes. 19, zoning review ID 140605. Property located on the south side of Malone Road, approximately 1,250 feet east of Louisiana Highway 22, to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from rural to crossroads for Veronica Keller.
The recommendation was to deny from staff and from the commission.
Motion. Motion by Mr. Todd Lambert.
Second.
Second by Mr. McConnell. Is there any opposition?
What's the
To
motion?
accept the recommendation of planning and
Okay. Any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
To deny.
You got that, Mr. Biden?
Staff recommendation was to deny.
Take a deep breath.
Number 20, zoning review ID 140505, property located on the north side of Louisiana Highway 427, better known as Perkins Road, approximately 1,300 feet west of Airline Highway, to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from medium-intensity residential to mixed-use, lot 193, Perkins Oaks, Part 2, for Jeremy Moore.
The recommendation was to deny on both, from both staff and commission.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Todd Lambert. Second by Mr. Thompson. Any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 21, zoning review ID 140405, property located on the south side of Louisiana Highway 429, better known as Cornerview Road, approximately 300 feet east of Louisiana Highway 73, to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from conservation to medium-intensity residential.
The recommendation from the commission was to accept. The recommendation from the staff was to deny.
So move.
So moved. Question. There's two of them. Clarify, Mr. Shea Snyder, which one you want?
I move to accept the planning commission's recommendation.
Got a motion to accept by Mr. Shea Snyder, the Planning Commission Department recommendation, second by Mr. Byriga. Question.
Brief discussion.
Planning commission
Planning
recommendation.
Planning Commission
They
recommendation.
recommended to accept the request.
You got that, Ms. Suzanne?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. McConnell.
My comment is this, the staff recommended not necessarily denying it, they recommended looking at the entire area and consider the entire area for rezoning. And that may be something that this council might want to bring before strategic planning to consider. I'm going to support the motion to rezone the property that Mr. Shakespeare made, but we may want to refer this entire area as recommended by staff to our strategic planning committee.
We can put it on next.
Well, let's hear from Mr. Lance, because I spoke to Mr. Lance on this today, and he cleared up for me.
Yes, sir. We have a zoning subcommittee, and that will be going to them, and then coming back to the strategic plan. So, yes, sir, thank you. Thanks.
Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, that's other residents in the area have voiced their concerns, and they also want to rezone their property also. The property that's being asked to be rezoned, it's adjacent to other properties that want their zoning change. The residents have no objection in changing that zoning.
And that'll be taken up at his committee meeting.
And subcommittee
meeting on that. All right, you got the motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Is there any opposition to the motion? Having none, motion passes. Number 21, zoning review ID 138605. Property located on the intersection of Louisiana Highway 935, Stringer Bridge Road, and Louisiana Highway 22 to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from rural to crossroads commercial for Ralph C. Mendoza. Mr. Brock.
The recommendation was to accept that request
Motion.
from both.
Second.
To accept the recommendation of our Planning and Zoning Commission.
Motion by Mr. Byringer, second by Mr. Valentine. Any questions? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes.
Thank you.
Number 23, this item was introduced as a two-thirds at the January 5th, 2006 council meeting. Public hearing has been advertised for January 19th, 2006. Move to public hearing section of this agenda. I'm sorry. We're moving this to number 31. All right. And I understand. Mr. Thompson.
Could I ask that you move it up to 21?
Please, sir.
28. If you don't mind. The Delmos are here and the elderly people.
All right, let me, Mr. Thompson, I will move it. As soon as we get to the public hearing and ordinance, I'll move it up there. Let's take care of 24.
Thank you.
The introduction of ordinance authorizing transfer of title to the city of Donaldsonville pursuant to the cooperative endeavor agreement dated January 5th, 2006.
Motion to introduce.
Second. Comment. Legal.
Mr. Babbitt.
Can I ask you to make one change in typographical error on ordinance? The 6-yard dump truck is a 1997 model, and there's also an international 6-yard dump truck. It's not a 2002 model, it's a 1999 model. So can you make the motion to introduce subject to that amendment?
Motion to introduce subject to Mr. Babbitt's amendments.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Byringer, second by Mr. Valentine with the amendment. Is there any question? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes. All right, at this time, we're going to bring item 31 up. At this time, we'll take up 31 now. Yeah, thank you, ma'am. 31, public hearing to consider an ordinance to acquire immovable properties from the Delmore family and to pay damages for the removal of their residence and other structures for the purpose of constructing road improvements on West Worthy Road as part of the road widening program for the purchase price of $58,300. I have someone sign up to speaker. Ms. Aberson?
Yes, Mr. Salvo, I'd like to reserve the right to go last after other comments.
Open public hearing
If
first.
possible, if you would notice the council had any questions they would want to direct to me.
I'm not a speaker, I'm just going to read the ordinance before the public hearing.
You can take my place. Go with it, Mr. Babbitt.
Thank you. The ordinance reads to acquire movable property from John Delmore Jr. and Mary Lee Williams Delmore and to pay damages for removal of their residence and other structures for the purpose of constructing road improvements on West Worthy Road for the purchase price of $58,300 as part of the Ascension Parish Road Widening Program. Further, to authorize the payment of relocation, housing payment, relocation expenses to the sellers in the amount of $76,700 plus closing costs and moving expenses. Be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Council, authorizes the purchase of all property, inclusive of all improvements located thereon, which property is situated in the parish of Ascension, located on West Worthy Road in Ascension Parish, state of Louisiana, and to pay compensation and damages for the loss of the property and the residents thereon for the purchase price of $58,300. A certain lot or parcel of ground situated in the parish of Ascension, west half of the northeast quarter of Section 31, Township 9, South Range 3 East, Southeastern Land District of Louisiana, more particularly described as set forth in the ordinance. As be it further ordained that the Ascension Parish Council agrees to pay relocation expenses to the sellers on the subject property. In accordance therewith, the parish agrees and does authorize payment as follows: $76,700 for replacement housing payment claim, closing costs, purchase price not to exceed $2,500, moving expenses not to exceed $1,700. The payment of these relocation expenses and replacement costs are conditioned on the mutual agreement of the sellers to complete a final release of the parish by the sellers. These payments are based upon the recommendation of URS employed by the parish in connection with the road widening project. This ordinance being adopted in conformity with Section 6.01 of the Ascension Parish Charter. The purchase of the property is subject to approval of the parish attorney and contingent upon sellers being able to deliver a good and merchantable title. Ronnie Hughes, parish president, authorized to sign all necessary documents on behalf of the parish of Ascension.
Mr. Chairman, motion to open the public hearing.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Byriga, second by Mr. Todd Lambert, open public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this agenda item? Ms. Averson, I'm going to call on you again because you know our procedure. It is a public hearing. If you have anything, you need to go ahead and do it now. I can't guarantee you anything after we close the public hearing.
I can always try.
I know it.
Might get a favorable ruling from Ricky if I play my cards right. I just urge you to accept this ordinance. It has gone before both the Transportation and Finance Committee, and it has their recommendation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Motion.
Motion to close the public
Motion to
hearing.
close the public hearing.
Motion on the ordinance.
Time out.
Got to close that.
We got a motion by Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Byriga to close the public hearing. Is there any opposition to the motion? Having the motion passed. Motion by Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Byriga to accept the ordinance. Is there any questions? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes. We're going to be moving back up to 25. Public hearing to consider an ordinance amending the Ascension Parish zoning map from conservation to mixed use for the property located on the north side of Highway 42, approximately 690 feet west of Idle Hour Road for John Tompley. Zoning review ID 125105. Mr. Babin.
The ordinance reads to amend the Ascension Parish Development Code land use map by rezoning a certain parcel of land from Conservation C to Mixed Use Corridor MUC. Whereas the Parish of Ascension has in effect a comprehensive plan of zoning, and pursuant to that plan, a parish-wide development code was adopted by the Ascension Parish Governing Authority, which became effective on June 1st, 1999. Whereas the Ascension Parish Development Code provides for a procedure for this amendment to allow for rezoning of property to a different classification. Whereas the herein below described property is located as such that rezoning of the property in conformity with the adjacent land uses is in conformity with the general land use of the plan of the parish, is not injurious to adjacent properties, it fully meets the qualifications for rezoning set forth under Louisiana law. Be it ordained that the following described property be rezoned from Conservation C to Mixed Use Corridor, its zoning ID 1251.05, track A1B of the original Joseph A. Last subdivision located in Section 23 and 38, Township 8 South, Range 3 East, Southeastern Land District, Ascension Parish, Louisiana, more fully described as set forth herein. Be further ordained that the land use map of the Ascension Parish Development Code is amended to reflect these rezonings, and that the Office of Planning and Zoning be authorized to make such changes.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second. Motion by Mr. Byriga, second by Ms. Dempsey Lambert to open the public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this public hearing?
Motion to close, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Motion by Mr. Byriga, second by Ms. Dempsey Lambert to close the public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. The ordinance itself, gentlemen. Ms. Fontenot.
I move the ordinance.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McConnell, second by Ms. Fontenot. Is there any question?
Mr. Chairman, Savoy, just want to remind everybody that this ordinance was denied by the Planning and Zoning, and also it was asked to be denied by the staff. Just want to remind everybody.
We appreciate that, Mr. Valentine. Is there any opposition to the motion?
I oppose.
Two objections, Mr. Hillensbeck and Mr. Valentine. Motion passes.
Spot zone.
That's right. Spot zone.
Spot zone.
Number 27, public hearing to consider an ordinance requesting the revocation of a 15-foot servitude, lot 619, Pelican Point, Golf Community, 10th filing, Sundance, and a portion of tract GC3Z1B1A of the Donaldson Clark Plantation property. This existing drainage servitude serves no purpose, and a new drainage servitude will be dedicated on the golf course side of the newly created lot 619A. Ferris Engineering Survey. Mr. Babin.
The ordinance reads, purpose to revoke existing 15-foot drainage servitude on the rear of lot 619 of Pelican Point Golf Community, 10th filing, Sundance, to allow for subdivision of said lot. Since the servitude has not been used for any purpose, the drainage servitude will be replaced along the exterior boundaries of lot 619A when the subdivision of said lot is approved. Be it ordained that the Ascension Parish Council is the governing authority for the Parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, in lawful session hereby revokes that 15-foot public drainage servitude as shown on the map showing substitute of the revoked line on Lot 619 Pelican Point Golf Community, 10th filing, Sundance, located in Section 7, Township 10 South, Range 3 East, Southeastern Land District of Louisiana, east of the Mississippi River, Ascension Parish, Louisiana, for Pelican Point Golf Community, LLC. Prepared by Parish Engineering and Surveying, LLC, said servitude to be more particularly described as the existing 15-foot servitude lying along the rear or westerly portion of Lot 619, Pelican Point Golf Community, 10th filing, Sundance. The above described servitude contains 989 square feet or 0.022 acres, more or less, and is more particularly as shown on the aforementioned map attached hereto, made a part hereof. All of the servitudes of records are hereby reserved.
Motion to open the public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Parish, second by Mr. Hillensbeck. Open the public hearing. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Anyone wishing to speak on this public hearing?
Motion to close, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Hillensbeck, second by Mr. Shakespeare. Is there any opposition to the motion?
Move the ordinance, Mr. Chairman.
Motion passes. Motion by Mr. Hillensbeck, second by Mr. Shakespeare.
You go, Jerry.
Is there any question? Any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Number 29, public hearing to consider an ordinance amending the personnel manual of the Central Parish Government to add subsection O to section 3, authorizing administration to award cost of living adjustment index to the consumer price index as necessary. Mr. Babbitt.
Ordinance is to amend personnel manual of the Ascension Parish Government, whereas the Ascension Parish Council moved to add section O, section 3, employee compensation, wage and salary administration as follows. The council authorizes administration to award cost of living adjustments, COLA index to the consumer price index as necessary. Be it ordained, the Ascension Parish Council's governing authority in the Board of Parish of Ascension does hereby authorize the above amendment to the personnel manual of the Ascension Parish Government.
Do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Dempsey Lambert.
Second.
Second by Mr. Byricker. Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. Anyone wishing to speak on this public hearing?
Motion to close, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Byricker.
Second.
Second by Mr. Shakespeare to close the public hearing. Is there any opposition to the motion? Having none, motion passes. The ordinance itself.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Savon.
Mr. Valentine.
This was brought up at the last meeting, and I think what it was an extension of the public hearing to this week. We had the Personnel Committee had not had a chance to evaluate the ordinance. Personnel Committee the other night met with Mr. Roy Katz, Director of Human Resources. We did have some concerns about the making an ordinance as far as the cost of living raises as necessary. It was brought to our attention by President Hughes, and of course he'd had some conversation with our attorney, Mr. Babin, that this was a way to correct it. The 3% raises were placed in the budget and approved in the budget, but essentially when they got to giving the raises, there was a large percentage, 139 as I understand it, of employees, which you have a list in front of you, that essentially had topped out in each one of their categories on the ranges. That would subsequently need an ordinance to do that. We had a discussion with that, had some contact with Mr. Babin, and the Personnel Committee has recommended that we give a one-time 3% raise, excluding the staff and parish president and anyone hired within the past year, as a one-time raise, not to be added to their ranges. And we also further ask that the staff reevaluates the ranges of each category, and come back to us no later than the middle of the summer with adjustments with raises throughout our all-employee classifications. And that is a recommendation from the Personnel Committee. I will ask Mr. Babin if he has some grief or if he needs to research the one-time raise, which would not be added to their ranges.
Well, I was asked two questions, one by you and one by Mr. Savoy today. You can grant under state law, you can't grant any kind of employee bonus. Like this comes up around Christmas time, trying to grant a Christmas bonus. But state law does not prevent you from giving a raise and make it non-recurring. So that's where you get the notion of this one-time pay increase. So that doesn't give me any heartburn. Mr. Savoy asked me today whether or not you could give pay raises to certain employees and not give pay raises to other employees. You certainly may do that. Discrimination on the basis that is prohibited by state, federal, or local law is illegal. Discrimination based on some other classification is not. So you can give pay raises to tractor drivers, or you can give a pay raise to secretaries. You can give a pay raise to any class of that sort, and that would not per se be illegal. You cannot discriminate on basis that are prohibited by law, and so that didn't give me any heartburn. So that's the questions I was asked earlier today.
Okay.
One by you, one by Mr. Savoy.
Right. And I think that pretty well clears it up. I believe that we all can do it. We did this in the past with my previous life, and we essentially had ran that by legal, and that is definitely a possibility you can do that. We're not creating any problems. I guess Chairman Savoy, being that this is an ordinance, I guess I would offer this as a resolution and offer that as a motion from the Personnel Committee.
Mr. Babbitt. Sir. I want you to help me stay in line with Robert's Rules of Order. You have the public hearing, the ordinance in front of you. Now, Councilman Valentine has made a recommendation coming from the Personnel Committee. Mr. Valentine, did you hear what Mr. Valentine is requesting?
I guess.
Is it? I don't know if.
Well, there's some agenda cleanup things that have to happen.
Yes.
You've got an ordinance before you.
Right.
The subject matter of the ordinance is not changing, so I don't think you have a problem with your agenda or the public notification issues as long as it is the same subject matter. But there is an ordinance before you. You have options with that ordinance. If you want to study that ordinance to do a permanent amendment to your personnel policy manual, which includes your steps and your caps and all that stuff, which is what this ordinance does, is make a permanent amendment to that ordinance. You can table this, you can send it to committee, or you can kill it, or you can adopt it. That's your choices. After that is done, you have this same subject matter, you can make a motion to do some alternative source. If you want to be technical and you're going to make a separate motion, you may want to do a 2/3 vote to add that to your agenda. If you're going to kill this and say, I'm going to make another motion to do that, then just do to be safe, do a 2/3 to add it. But before you add it, deal with the thing that's on the agenda, namely the ordinance. That's what I think you need to do procedurally to clean up the agenda.
Right. Mr. Byringer.
Mr. Babbitt, could there just be an amendment to the existing ordinance that's before us now?
He's not amending the current ordinance. The Parish President has asked us to do an amendment to the ordinance, and that's the amendment to the ordinance. He suggests it's not amending the ordinance. He's going to do
a resolution
another time or
What?
study that another day.
Mr. Savoy, Chairman's office.
Mr. Valentine.
You through, Ms. Barry? I mean, you understand? Essentially, we did not think that this ordinance should be approved, but we do think that the 3% raise should be given naturally to our employees. So I guess my point would be that I would move that we do not approve the ordinance, and I make that motion to clean it up.
Second.
Got a motion to clarify me, Mr. Valentine.
But instead of moving the ordinance, I move that the ordinance not be accepted.
All right.
Is there a motion in order to adopt the ordinance? If there is no motion, it dies for lack of support or lack of a second. If there is a motion to adopt and you vote it down, it fails.
Okay.
So instead of making a motion to do the negative, let's vote on the positive
Right.
and see if it goes up.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Hildenbeck.
I think I'll pass for now.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accepting the ordinance? No motion, the ordinance fails. Real quick, I'd like to say this. For the employees' sake, this council has passed the 2006 budget with a 3% raise in it. Administration needs to go forward with that as to the best of their ability according to what's legal now. We need to go ahead and clean this up. If we plan on coming back and giving the employees that are maxed out a 3% one time, we need to move on that as quickly as possible. Mr. Byrick.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Due to these circumstances, I move that we amend the agenda with a 2/3 vote to take up the issue of addressing the 139 people that cannot get that 3% raise.
I second it.
Got a motion by Mr. Byrick to add 2/3 on the agenda. Second by Ms. Fontenot to take up the 3% pay raise. Is there any question? Is there any opposition? Having none, motion passes. We're going to take that up right now.
With that, Chairman Salvo, I will make the motion for a one-time 3% pay raise to exclude the staff, parish president, and any one hired within the past year that was limited out on their ceiling of salary.
Got a motion by Mr. Valentine.
Second.
Second by Mr. Todd Lambert.
Discussion.
Question.
Thank you.
Mr. Hillinsbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess the question I'd have is why are we excluding the staff? I can understand the parish president. He knew what the job paid when he ran for the position. But as far as the staff, they're maxed out as well. And I know the salary they were paid when they were hired is 2 years ago for most of them, I believe all of them. The salary they were hired at does not buy the same goods and services 2 years later today. So I'd like to offer an amendment to the motion that we include the staff.
Amendment to the motion to include the staff.
Second.
Second by Mr. McConnell. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Byron.
In the Personnel Committee, the discussion on not including the staff was when everyone was first elected and the parish president had his thoughts on his administrators and his staff members. He asked to increase those salaries substantially, and if we approved it, then he wouldn't ask for anything for 4 years. That discussion came up. These people already had a substantial increase when they were hired from what the job used to be, and that was the reasoning behind it, and that was the thought process.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Let me catch up with the rest of them. Ms. Fontenot.
Also, we knew that there were several people that had been hired recently, or it was discussed that some of them were hired recently at their max, which, there was a range, there was a minimum and an in between and a max, and they were hired at their max. And we felt like for this year that those didn't need another increase since they had gotten the maximum to begin with. So that was one of the other things that was discussed.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McConnell?
Well, I don't have a problem, Mr. Chairman, with the decision the people hired within the past year. Of course, they wouldn't merit pay increases like people like others have, but the staff that we have, they've been with us for 2 years. I'm very proud of the staff that we have. I've found them very accommodating, very professional. I almost see it as penalizing them that they're not receiving a salary increase with the rest of the staff. It's a 3% increase. I feel it's only fair, Mr. Hillinsbeck motion that we include our staff. We're only talking, 4 or 5 people. They've been with us for 2 years. They have not had a salary adjustment. I understand Parish President Randy, he walked and knocked on every door begging the people to elect him to this position, knowing full well what it was. The salaries were set for these staff members so that we could attract the best and brightest talent to help this parish. I believe we have attracted the best and brightest talent, and I think they've done an admirable job. And I would just like to include them in the salary increase. I understand the parish president. Sorry, Ronnie, no offense, but
don't need the money. Never asked for it.
And I understand those recent hirees, but I would really like this council to consider giving that vote of confidence to our staff, because that's what it is. It's a vote of confidence and a vote of thanks for the job that they have done. And I would just hope y'all would support our staff.
Mr. Hildenbeck.
I'm fine, thank you.
Mr. Todd Lambert.
Yeah, 2 years ago when we looked at the new staff, Parish president, made a comment to me that, we're paying them a little bit more, and I said, well, what about our lower working people, because, they got some that's working $7 an hour, and these people are going to get raises every year. And the past president told me then that the staff people were not getting raises. They knew what they were getting when they came in, the same as he did. So I agree with Mr. Barger on his situation, and that's the way I'm going to vote.
Any further questions? Mr. President.
I don't recall saying we were going to freeze these salaries for 4 years, but obviously there's been a lot happening in 2 years. I just think that people in our community need to understand that when people come to work in these kind of positions, and with what's been happening in our parish with the storms and the extra workloads, and you also need to understand that if you read the charter carefully in the section under the duties of the personnel director, the salary plan is not supposed to include appointed people. If you read D2, it says to develop and upon adoption to administer a salary plan for all non-appointed positions in the parish service. And so positions of directors of departments and are ones that we should have a legitimate debate about. I know those of you who work in the industry realize that a salary of $65,000 to some citizens, obviously, Councilman Todd Lambert, and some people work in the government, that's a lot of money. But it's not a lot of money anymore. And the Consumer Price Index, I think, came out about in October over 4%, the highest it's been in quite a while. And so to attract people, and now you're seeing in the community, I've met with the plant managers this week, they're having problems keeping their subcontractors because of FEMA and other contractors hiring them away. And so they're being demanded now to give a 20% increase to their subs, or they're going to go to work for FEMA. Now, none of the directors have demanded they're going to quit parish government, but I think we need to recognize the many, many, many hours. And unbeknownst to me 2 years ago, I had no idea how many committee meetings you guys were going to have, and how many extra hours you're going to require people to be there from the staff. And so I ask you to remember that, and so we can keep good people in this parish. And if you need to compare, go talk to East Baton Rouge and some other parishes and see what they're paying directors. In the fastest growing parish in the state, where building permits in 2004 were 1,157, estimate this year 2,200. So 2 years later, the growth may double in Ascension Parish. And so from your building officials to your public works, the demands because of this growth, obviously. And you've asked us, and we've tried to accommodate. Now, if you don't want to recognize it, fine. I'll stop requiring them to come to all your committee meetings, because it's not fair for people to, they can't, according to the personnel manual, they cannot be given comp time. They can't be given comp time to those who are in these positions. And so we've got a situation there. We can't give them comp time, according to the parish personnel manual. And so I just ask you to really think about those of you who work in the industry, you know what you make. And I know that these people have deserved it. I have never asked. I'm not sure why the parish president's office was put in the mix. It was not included in the budget. We put in the budget that you passed 3% for parish employees, including the directors. You passed the budget with that in there. Now, if you want to renege on that now, well, let's debate it and let's talk about it. But keep in mind that you did pass the budget just within the last 60 days with that in there for those people. So I submit to you that that debate should have been held then and not tonight. If you had questions about that then, you should have brought those up and your concerns then, and not after the fact now in this manner. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Valentine.
Yes, I hope Mr. Parish President didn't mean what he said when he said he wasn't going to allow staff or ask his staff to come to our committee meetings, because that is an important part of government. As from the federal government to state government, all operate on committees. And it's important that the staff be abreast of what's going on in these committee meetings. We'll remind everyone that, and I could be wrong on this, but I think that the last time we did give a cost of living raise last year also, President?
We gave a 2%, I think,
And
last year.
they received the 2%?
Gwen, do you know the answer to that question?
So they have already received a 2% raise since they've been working. To be honest with you, most of the council members, or some of the council members, I'm only going to say most, some of the council members, especially the ones that was on the Personnel Committee, was not really attuned to the fact that the staff was included in that raise or this one. Let me remind everybody that not only do the staff get paid, I think, a very good salary, they also all have vehicles, parish vehicles. So I think that the parish treats our staff well and our employees well. When this was presented to us, with the sense that we had people that were making barely minimum wages could survive. Insurance costs have gone up, and that's what the council was wanting to focus on, not to give the management staff 3% raises, but to make sure that the people that needed the raises the most got the raises, and that's why we came with that resolution.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hillenbeck.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to go back and say, yeah, we have attracted a good staff, and I've called on them many times, and it's very important that they get me the information that I need, and they always do that in a very timely manner. They're very accommodating. We do have a great staff. They're doing a good job for this parish. I think it's important that we keep the staff we've got and that we continue the continuity. And I just think we ought to reward them for the job they're doing.
Ms. Fontenot.
What we are doing here tonight is just as Mr. Valentine said, we are rewarding the people that's at the bottom of the ladder for the hard work that they do. They are the worker bees. They are the one that's providing the services on the roads and the ditches, that are providing the services for our citizens. The staff is well paid. The staff has many good benefits in cars, meal expenses, other things. We didn't want to look at this at this time. We asked for a review from Mr. Katz to bring us an update in the middle of the summer on the whole salary ranges. We were fair. Right now, the concentration is on the people that are in the working capacity, the blue-collar workers that are working, that are underpaid right now because they are maxed out and they cannot receive a cost of living benefit because the policy manual does not allow it. And all we're doing is doing a temporary fix while we can go back and address the main issue. I thank you.
Is there any further questions?
Jerry, yeah.
Mr. Thomas.
Are we talking about 4 staff members? Or how many are we talking about?
I'm not sure if I understand. We've only got 4 department heads, and you have a chief administrative officer now. I'm not sure what the personnel committee.
Someone mentioned we had 4. We were talking about 4 people.
Whatever come out of personnel. I'm not on the personnel.
Essentially the 4 department heads and the CAO.
So I don't know exactly what you guys are
That's
talking
what Mr. Barrett is motioning.
Well, we're gonna have to clear this up right now first. Ms. Gwynn, can you help us out, and Ricky? Administrative staff. Is it Chief Administrative Officer, Chief Financial Officer, Public Works Director, Personnel Director, Planning and Development Director, and OEP Director? Is that the way we understand it, Mr. Babbitt?
You're looking for the definition of administrative staff?
Yes.
Hey, while he's looking for that, Jerry,
Mr. Hillenbeck.
Yeah.
Department heads.
Gwen, if that is the staff involved, how many dollars are we talking about for these key positions with a 3% raise? Can you do the quick math on that and give us what we're talking about? If it's $15,000, if it's $20,000 additional? I've got this handout if it'll help you.
The Ascension Parish Charter defines administration under Article 5 as the Secretary and Treasurer, the Office of Secretary and Treasurer, Chief Administrative Officer, Human Resources, and that's it. Defining what administrative staff is, it's not going to be in the charter. You'll have to define what you mean by that term as used in this context.
Mr. Valentine, Chairman of the Personnel
Yes, sir.
Committee.
I would say that it would include also OEP Director, CAO, Director of Human Resource, Director of Planning and Zoning, and who did I leave out?
Planning and Development Committee.
Planning and Development.
Not Planning and Zoning, Planning and Development.
And Chairman of Finance, CFO, Ms. Grant,
You got DPW.
and DPW.
That's 6.
Yes, sir.
I think Gwen just about got the computation, the dollar amount we're talking about. I think we're having a lot of discussion, probably of around $20,000, which is really a thimble amount compared to a $60 million budget.
I got to break down while I'm waiting on what Gwen's doing. I asked Ms. Gwen to give me the difference between in the last 2 years as far as the departments, and I'm gonna read them off to you. And this was 2 years ago, 2003. Administrative staff, the chief administrative officer's salary was $65,600. Today is $70,300, and I'm rounding it off. Chief financial officer, which is your secretary treasurer, 2 years ago was $67,600. Today is $70,300. Public works director 2 years ago was $61,400. Today is $66,300. Personnel director 2 years ago was $52,600. Today is $66,300. Plan and development director 2 years ago was $55,700. Today is $66,300. OEP director 2 years ago was $39,900, and that was a 70-hour biweekly pay. Today is $63,000. Well, y'all just think. Now, Miss Gwen, you got that? $12,000. All right. Any further discussion?
Did everybody understand that? We're talking about a difference in what's on the table, as Mr. Valentine suggested. Compared to including staff for an additional $12,000.
And I could add something, Mr. Chairman. The comments here, so our citizens understand that in the last 2 years, the position of the Office of Emergency Preparedness Director has been added. The title of fire administrator prepares to work with all the fire districts, the fire departments, as well as over the maintenance and vehicle fleets. So we have a position now that's been expanded. As Jerry pointed out, it was a part-time job when the last gentleman had retired, and now it's a full-time job with much added responsibility. So, and I remind you again that you've already approved an ordinance, the budget, with that in there. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. There's an amendment to the motion. The amendment is to include staff to the motion. That's what we're going to be voting on. Anybody got any questions on the motion that's on the table as we speak? All right. Give me a roll call vote, Ms. Suzanne.
Councilman Thomas.
Yes.
Councilman Chase Knight.
No. No.
Councilman Thompson.
Yes.
Councilwoman Fontenot.
No.
Councilman Lambert.
Yes.
Councilman Hillsday.
Yes. Got to vote for my own motion.
Councilman Valentine.
No.
Councilman Tyree.
No.
Councilman McConnell.
Yes.
Councilman Byron.
No, ma'am.
Chairman votes no. Motion fails. Move to the original
They
motion.
gonna vote for anything you bring? Yeah.
Do I hear a motion?
Motion is already on the floor.
Motion on the original motion. Is there any opposition to the original motion? Having that motion passes. We're now on number 33, gentlemen.
Motion adjourned, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Byregger, second by Mr. Todd Lamb to adjourn. Any opposition? Having that motion passes.